Hey everybody, Brandon and Brandon back again to the Kabuki Strength Lab. Today we're talking about pull-ups. These are one of those exercises that is in almost every strength program around. They're one of the best upper body muscle builders as well as upper body strength builders. So we're going to talk about a few key considerations that we need to make from a movement standpoint in order to get the most out of your pull-ups, as well as how to regress pull-ups in order to actually progress pull-ups. So to start with, we're going to get Brandon on a box. Now you can jump up to a pull-up bar. We almost always prefer to start on a box if possible so that we can get the grip set properly, and we find that it allows proper tension to be created in the trunk. The biggest consideration that we're making in pull-ups though is how the scapular musculature works. All of the muscles that attach to the scapulas, shoulder, the entire shoulder girdle, how that functions is what we're focused on. We're not necessarily focused on really contracting our lats or focusing on squeezing our lats or things like that. We need to make sure that the scapulas are gliding and doing their job the way that they should. The biggest place that people get in trouble is when the scapulas run up their back and they end up really shrugging and dumping over the top. This is the same fault that we see in a bench press that gets dumped onto the chest. It's that pattern that we need to avoid. Why don't you show them what that looks like there, Brandon? Yep. Go all the way up, dump those shoulders. There you go. Yeah, that's the one. Brandon was doing them right to begin with, or close to. What we need to avoid though is that scapula riding up his back. We cannot have him necessarily going too high if he doesn't have the mobility to do so. You have to have a ton of mobility to actually get your chin above the bar and use your shoulders properly. So if you lack thoracic extension or scapular mobility, pull-ups in a big range of motion are going to be very challenging for you. So what I would recommend is going to about 4 heads height to the bar or even slightly under, and that's going to be an acceptable range of motion. We also don't want to just bust out half reps at the bottom. We need to use as full of a range of motion that our mobility allows for, but the biggest consideration is avoiding that dumping at the top. Now there's a few drills that we can do. Things that I would point you towards are wall angels or overhead wall slides facing the wall this way, which we have linked in the Instagram page. Now, the way that we like to progress pull-ups, we can add weight to them if you're strong enough to, but that's usually a pretty big jump for people. If you go from doing sets of 10 strict bodyweight pull-ups, you're probably only going to be able to do sets of 3 to maybe 5 with a little bit of weight. So instead, what we want to do is supermax the eccentric portion of the pull-ups. Now, we can do that in isometric form. Get Brandon to the very top of the pull-up and hold. Good. And he would hold that now for as long as possible or until he felt his shoulder girdle really get out of position, because the fault's going to be finding yourself holding in that position. The other way that we're going to do it is to add weight to it. I don't know, maybe 30, 40, 50 pounds, almost as heavy as you can go, while slowly lowering under control. So you don't want to use so much weight that you are just accelerating to the ground, but you want to use enough weight that you can control each segment of the actual pull-up. So someone in this situation would obviously not be able to do a pull-up like Brandon just did to get back into position. But standing from the box is usually preferred versus jumping up to grab the bar, because he's going to set himself in a better position, especially if he's not strong enough to just bust out sets of 10 or 15 or do heavy weighted pull-ups. So Brandon's got probably 20 pounds of chains around his neck. He would hold and really slowly, and I'm talking like probably an 8 count down, as slow as possible. And if he can pause at any point, we would encourage him to do so. The final fault that we're going to see is people losing tension at the bottom. Now this is a minor detail, but it is going to help you maintain your shoulder position if you can keep better abdominal musculature tension, such as you would use in an ab roll or otherwise. And in fact, an ab roll out is exactly the same amount of tension you would want to see at the bottom of a pull-up. Anything you'd like to add there, Coach Brandon?
Yeah, you can make the distinction too between chin-ups and pull-ups. Chin-ups are going to work a little different musculature, such as the lats and the biceps, but realistically not everybody makes that distinction. But obviously chin-up, same exact nuance they talked about, just with supinated grip. But at times you run into the issue of not being able to actually supinate completely. Someone like myself, individuals with a little more muscle mass may run into that issue. So you may need to do some static stretching to actually deal with those mobility concerns.
Brandon out.
Fuck, pull-ups took a lot of me.